Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Life After DD214. Today, I have with me a very special guest, Luke Plant. Luke, how are you, my friend?
Good, brother. How you doing?
Good, man. Glad to be here. I appreciate you coming out and chatting with me tonight.
Anytime, brother. Anytime.
Appreciate it. So, Luke, you and I met when we were both stationed at Fort Drum.
Right.
And we recently caught back up because you commented on one of my shorts I had published, and you're trying to get me to meet some other folks. You're trying to expand my horizon, which I appreciate.
Yeah, I have another friend that is doing the same kind of podcast stuff as you, and I figured y'all two can talk and collaborate and stuff and share information that helps everybody out.
Absolutely, I appreciate it. So, Luke, since you're the guest today, um, let's start with you. Let's jump into when and why you decided to join the Army.
Pretty much growing up, my dad was in 20th Special Forces Group, and as far as I can remember, I've always wanted to be in the Army. There was no doubt that that's what I was going to do. I was in high school, and recruiters came by. There was no hesitation that wasn't going to join the Army. I was probably the easiest recruit he ever had doing the delayed entry program my senior year, and then I left for basic at Fort Sill in September of '94.
What was your
And
MOS?
then it was called a 55 Bravo. And then um, it changed from 55 Bravo to 89 Bravo. And then through my career, I stayed a 89 Bravo, but my duties had me positioned as others. I was cadre at the WTU,
Mm-hmm.
and so they reclassed me as a 11 Bravo. And then I think it was a 74 Delta, I think. It was a chemical munitions. I was doing a job, and that's what they reclassified me as,
Okay.
and other stuff. But
So you've just been all MOSs you could possibly think of.
yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I was definitely a jack of all trade. If you remember, I worked on generators out in the desert
Mm-hmm.
when we were deployed. I could drive. I was a master driver, so I could drive anything. Didn't matter if it was a tank or a truck, and any forklift or any equipment. I could work on anything, build anything. Worked with the Navy CBs, and I did a lot of stuff when I first started out. I worked with 3160th SOAR out of Hunt Army Airfield and 1st 75th Ranger Battalion, and so I would deploy with them, the rapid deployment team, and that was always fun. I just had a very adventurous career.
Sounds like it. It sounds like you're the guy to talk to at like barbecues who's got all the stories. So like when you're 80, you're gonna be that guy that everyone's like, "Oh no, Grandpa, go to bed. We don't want to talk about your time, pretending to fly helicopters."
I don't think I have a full-on Chris Christopherson story where he took a helicopter, and went flying around. He stole it. Chris Christopherson stole a helicopter, right?
I've heard. I have
Yeah.
heard these stories. Yes.
But because growing up in Alabama, I was close to Fort Rucker,
Hmm.
and
So you were
we
close
get
to stealing a helicopter then.
yeah, it didn't steal it, but I have gotten to fly a Kiowa.
Okay.
I have flown in um, Blackhawks, Chinooks, Hueys, and Kiowas. Before they all went to the Delta models.
Gotcha.
I
That
flew
makes
the simulators at Rucker.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So talk about your time in.
Um,
Obviously, we've got some great stories already.
let's see. Once I got to Hunter, um, I got put in with the third mag, and we did a lot of deployments with them. Pretty much every unit, every time one of the mag platoons was deploying, I always ended up going. I've been to Egypt a few times for Bright Star operations. Um, I did Operation Southern Watch, which was Kuwait '98 when Saddam
Hmm.
was acting up. When I was with 3rd ACR, I did another Bright Star rotation, and I also did S47, which was in Bosnia. So many. Did one where I went to Haiti.
Hmm.
I was stationed in Korea and Germany as my overseas, but I spent most of my time in Germany and Iraq, been to Iraq and Afghanistan. But I've been all over the place.
Yeah, it sounds like you've been all over the world pretty much.
I,
Um,
I I think the only continents I haven't been on is the Arctic and Antarctic, and then um, there was one other that I hadn't been on. One other place I hadn't been, but as far as continents, I've been on all of them.
okay, sounds good. Maybe we missed this, but what year did you join the army?
93, and then I did the delayed entry for the year. It was my senior year.
Got it. Okay, so you joined in 93, and then you've been all over the world, both in peacetime, essentially, and then conflict times. Now, when did you decide to retire?
I retired. My actual retirement was in 2015. It was September of 2015. And so it was pretty much exactly 21 years,
Yeah, that's awesome.
is what I got credit for.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's about the same time that I left the army. Was 2015. So, yeah, we've been out pretty close to about the same time. But you were talking about this prior to us going live. You had a very eventful retirement
Yep.
process.
Yep. The I was in the process of having multiple surgeries, and then before I started having the surgeries, I went ahead and dropped my retirement packet at my 19 year mark. It was shortly after my 19-year mark, and my unit kept losing my retirement packet because I'd go and have surgery, and then once I got where I could get up and start moving around, and I was more or less back at work, or getting ready to go back to work, I'd go over to the Soldier Sports Center here on Fort Bragg, and I go, hey, just checking on my retirement packet, and they're like, no, we haven't got anything yet. So I go over to my unit. I go, hey, where's my retirement packet? Oh, we don't know. It went up to, commander signed it, it's supposed to be up at brigade, or, wherever. Okay. And then, kind of left it alone, and then, find out it's lost. And so after a couple of those, I started making them sign for it. And, you know, I ended up, more or less ETSing before I, retired.
Hold on.
And then,
I need to ask this question because you just said something very interesting. Um, you said that you made them sign D8 forms, but prior to that, you said after a couple of times. How many times did they lose your retirement packet?
at least six that I can think of.
Holy cow!
Just kept having to resubmit it. That's the reason. I had it set up where I was going to retire at my 20-year mark and be done. I guess kind of worked out in my favor because I was still having surgeries trying to get patched up throughout that 21st year. And, they just kept losing it. So they had to go all the way to 30 SC and answer to the higher ups there of why my retirement packet kept getting lost, because they were trying to put it on me. Retirement service is the one who called higher and was like, no, he keeps checking on his packet, he keeps asking, we've been asking the unit where it's at, and we've been getting the runaround. I know he's been getting the runaround. So it's not on the soldier, it's on the chain of command.
Right.
And then after I actually finally retired, I stopped by the unit because they said they had some paperwork for me. So I go by there and they hand me my file, and then there was copies of my retirement packet where I turned it in. They just stuck it in there and never. did anything with it.
Oh man,
The commander had signed it or something, put like a post-it note on it, stuck it in the folder, and that was it. That's where it stayed. There was, I think, one or two there copies.
goodness gracious! You also had mentioned that that unit that you were with was not exactly stellar,
Yeah, it was
as it
having a lot of
was.
problems.
Mm.
It was.
Because
Um,
you were mentioning that they were. It was almost a revolving door of leadership, is what you were
it
telling
it
me.
was. It was. There was a lot of stuff going on. One first sergeant decided to get a different position. Some were relieved for whatever reasons, you know, and you come to work and um, you're like, who's the first sergeant today? Somebody, hey, I'm the first sergeant today. Oh, how you
Oh,
doing,
man,
first sergeant? Yeah.
gotcha. Oh, okay, now my curiosity is piqued. You ETS'd before you retired.
Right. Well, they came in. Technically, I ETS, but they fixed the dates so that I was still covered. I didn't, according to paperwork, I didn't ETS. I was actually on convalescent leave at the time when that was going on, but um, the they had to come in and reenlist me to extend me past my ETS date to be able to officially retire
Got it.
because they still had to fix, through all the paperwork had to go through retirement services. And so they pretty much hand walked my paperwork all the way through retirement services.
Man,
And everywhere it had to go, they worked it out.
man, you definitely had an eventful retirement process for sure.
Definitely.
And in the meantime, you're getting surgeries, you're on convalescent leave, you're recovering. What about the other retirement things that needed to happen? For example, medical process for VA disability, and then also there's an SFL tap that I'm sure you had to go to.
Right. I had to do the tap, was it? Yeah, tap course where you
Hmm.
got to do your retirement course to do your uh, job applications and stuff like that. Um, that was kind of like in between, some of the early surgeries. And then the med board process and my retirement basically went hand in hand with the VA.
Okay,
They have a program, I forget the term for it now, but basically, as they're doing the med board, they're doing my VA analysis all at the same time. And then I'm going through and submitting all my paperwork for my claims. They're doing all their evaluations, go in and check my mobility is and reviewing my medical records. At the same time, I'm doing my normal stuff pretty much. All I do is I go to appointments, see this doc today and another doc next week or whatever until they finish the process.
so while you're doing the SFL tap, what were your plans after retiring?
I really wanted to just sit back and enjoy time with my kids and do what I am doing now. I did think about trying to um, get a hobby as in, some woodworking or, I like to work with metal. I want to do some education on welding, which I'm still planning on doing.
Hmm.
Taking some courses here at Fayetteville Tech to, like some welding classes and stuff like that. Do like a little side gig, earning money, doing a little bit of welding work on people's projects.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds like fun. You're already the jack of all trades, as you say. Sounds like you're just out there helping people whenever they need.
Yeah, growing a little garden out here in my yard, just trying to enjoy life because my career was very fast paced and I was always gone. I was always rapid deployment, most of it, and I was always gone. I missed so much my kids being born, all the highlights and so many different events in their lives. You know, and once I retired, I had another daughter, and so I wanted to be there for that and be there for everything. And so I was actually able to be there for her being born. I'm there for all of her life events. First day of school, last day of school. If she has a recital or something, I can be there for it.
That's amazing. Especially now. How old is she?
She's 7 now. She just turned 7 in May.
Yeah, happy birthday. But yeah, like these are incredible times to where you just want to be there, especially while she grows up. And you weren't always available to be at those certain events for your older kids. So having that opportunity, that luxury now is amazing, and I'm sure she's super grateful. Maybe not realizing it now, but
She
she'll
will
be
one day.
super grateful. Yeah, exactly. She'll be super grateful one day when she looks back and says, "Wow, he was there for everything."
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Talking about that, my son was born while I was in a firefight in Iraq. I got the phone call on the sat phone when, and we were actually getting shot at. And, I think about it, you hear tink, tink, tink. All right, it's awesome. How much did he weigh? What was that?
Man, that's an interesting story. That's just something that comes out of a movie. I'm sure that everybody in the unit had a kick out of it after.
Yeah, I was actually detached from my main unit at that time doing, we were doing the weapons caches for all of Saddam's, uh, I was set up over at Saddam's son stables right outside of Baghdad. And um, I was basically clearing out that whole area. They just dumped all the munitions out there. And it was my job to go in, repackage it, and for the Iraqi army and demill and blow up everything that was not good.
Got it. That sounds like an interesting job too. It sounds like you were always go 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 while you were in the army, and now that you're retired, and you've been retired for almost 10 years now.
Yeah, my kids keep me go go go.
That's hey, that's fair. I was gonna say, how do you feel the op tempo is now compared to then?
And in some aspects, it's actually even more go because it's 24/7, 7 days a week, 365. I wouldn't change that for the world. There are times where it is harder, especially like we were talking earlier, dealing with the civilian side. I do have PTSD and I do not like going to crowded events. And sometimes when I go to orchestra concerts with my daughters, for them, sometimes there's so much noise and so much chaos with people around me and stuff that I pretty much my family sit down and I'll go and walk around outside until it's like the last minute and I'll go in and get my seat right before concert starts. I just mentally have to prepare myself for being in crowds and stuff or going to events.
And do you see anyone to help handle that?
Yes, I do. Matter of fact, I got an appointment tomorrow. Uh,
Oh, good.
I do talk when, especially if I'm having issues. But, as long as I'm not having to be in crowded environments or things are not so chaotic. I'm pretty good.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's probably one of the biggest things that a lot of people suffer through, especially when we've had to be in places where the crowds were dangerous. And I'm glad that you're seeing a therapist to get through dealing with that. How long have you been seeing a therapist?
Well, whenever I first got out, seeing a therapist, talking to them, I kind of got a lot of stuff under controls. I found ways to deal with a lot of things. And they gave me a lot of coping tools to be able to manage myself. And I also spent time while I was at Drum as cadre at the WTU. We were standing up at Fort Drum. And I came and worked with you guys right after that.
Okay.
So I just more or less came off that trail to you guys. And then turned around and deployed.
Yeah, that's true.
uh, I had came back from a deployment, started doing the cadre at the WTU, and doing the WTU. I started learning, how to deal with things myself because I had to teach, others how to do it. My soldiers how to cope, and I go to appointments with them and listen to them. Their doctors talk to them and stuff, and they talking to each other kind of helped each other out, help each other learn how to deal with scenarios and situations. And then whenever I got out, I had obligated appointments that I needed to go through to the VA, and they wanted to make sure I was all right. I wanted to make sure I was all right because getting out is a big transition. It does have kind of a rubber band effect in some people because you do miss the camaraderie and the people that you're with and that routine and that pace. But then you're in the civilian world and you're not having to get up at dark 30 and PT and work and this that and the other. There's what's your purpose in life now?
Yeah.
But so I did that for a while, and then I got myself good, and then life struggles happen, and I see that I'm starting to become more agitated and angry. Um, and I'm like, hey, let me just talk to somebody, and I can usually talk to some of my army buddies or something. Go and spend time with my friends, and and just get away from the scenario for a little bit, and I'm good. And here lately, I was getting agitated and angry, because just so much stress going on. Started seeing somebody again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's always good, man. It's always good to be able to speak to someone, especially a professional, while you're dealing with that. So now that you've retired and we see like what are the toughest things that you deal with? And some of that is just crowds and just dealing with uh, your health, your mental health when you're within those crowds and those things, and you're taking care of those. What do you do now?
Well, my 7-year old, she's just starting school. She just finished her first grade, so she's going into second grade year. And, I'm trying to be there for her and do stuff with her. Been doing a lot of gardening from the spring till now. Now I'm starting to harvest peppers and tomatoes and stuff like that we decided to grow. I'll have some melons here before too long, but trying to do stuff peaceful, quiet, and relaxing. I got a house that has a lot of woods around it, so I try to you know maintain some health. Going on walks and stuff. One of my daughters who's in college for environmental science, and she likes to be outdoors in nature and stuff. And we'll go walking through the woods and we'll find interesting salamanders or see deer or fish or do all kinds of wildlife and stuff. And just enjoy nature. And that's something I've always loved doing. Growing up on a farm in Alabama, I'd walk in the woods with my dad.
So you're just retired, right? You're just
Yep.
retired and enjoying life.
Yep.
Okay. So you didn't have to worry about getting a job and all the other things that a lot of other people who retire.
Yeah. Well, I was 100%,
Mhm.
from day one. I was pretty broke up. And, between, my disability and, retirement, that took care of, my bills. I had gotten a divorce, right before I met you. That was coming off that trail. That was kind of all involved in that. My first sergeant, like I said, he knew that I needed a break. He got selected to be the first sergeant over at the WTU, and so he was like, "Look, you need a break," because he knew that I did the 15 months with First Armored Division, left Germany, got to Drum, and then I was deployed 3 or 4 months later with a unit that just stood up,
Yeah.
and then came back off of that, and we were getting ready to go again. And he was like, "Look, you need a break." And then the relationship at that point was at a volatile point. So went ahead and got divorced, because it was just too much. And then doing the cadre at the WTU, and then like I said, that's whenever I came and started working with you guys.
Got it. What has civilian life taught you that the army didn't?
Life is hard. I would recommend taking every advantage of getting education. A lot of people, when they get out, they have to worry about bills and finances and stuff. So they jump in getting a job, and a lot of them are trying to get an education and a job at the same time so that they can get a higher paying job. Uh, you know, while you're in, get as much education as you can. even just, military schools, whatever it may be. Uh, and then use that. A lot of that will transfer over into some college courses. I was surprised how much transferred over. But you when you get out, you get continue your education, get into school, try to find a good job that will help you with going to school and maintaining your job. That's more flexible, so that you can advance yourself to be able to get that higher paying job.
Nice.
Um, a friend of mine, we came in at the same time. We went to um, AIT together, and stationed together in Georgia. Still, talking, every almost every day. When he got out, he went into what's called the Quasis program, and so he's the civilian who goes and inspects ammunition. And he was begging me to, work, go through the course and do it with him. And I really thought about doing it because with that pay, I could be making a lot of money. I
Mhm.
had opportunities whenever I retired, making six figures with like KBR and businesses doing munitions and stuff for them. And I really wish I would have done that, but I physically couldn't. And in hindsight, I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much. I would have been back away from my family, more likely in some other country. I would have had to move my family around because he's had to move around a couple of times. He's like, it's kind of like being in the Army. You just get paid more, and you got to deal with contractors more. And contractors is kind of like a union job. They do whatever they want to when they want to, and plain when you make them have to do their job. He says that it drives him crazy.
As a civilian contractor,
Yeah,
I don't completely agree, but I also don't completely disagree.
yeah,
Um, we talked about this prior to us getting on air as well. Is one of the things that you do now is you volunteer
right.
for anything and everything that your daughter is involved in, pretty much, right? And I think that this brings a good point in the fact that had you decided to take one of those positions, right, and having to move across the country, the world, having to go on quote unquote deployments again, right? Like there was a time and a place for all of that, in my opinion, which was while we were in the Army and doing those things. And that at that point, we were just told, hey, we got to go.
Yeah,
Now, as a retiree or as someone who's already gotten out, we now have a choice, right? Just because the money is there or the deployment is there doesn't mean we have to take it. And I think that the fact that you decided not to go that route, but you decided to stay home, be with your daughter, and be there throughout all your family's new and exciting growth, I think that's much more admirable.
yeah. I mean, I know that I could have a really big house and all these wonderful things that people strive for. You drive around in a brand new Silverado or have some fancy sports car. I don't need that. Like, I'm happy. I got my 2011 Silverado gets me from point A to point B most days. I got a nice house that fits my family's needs. I mean, it's a really nice house, big house, and quiet neighborhood. I don't know if you can hear the frogs chirping, crickets and stuff.
But more importantly, you and your family are happy.
Yeah, we're family. I get to be there for all the ups and downs. If she goes roller skating through the house and falls, and I'm there to pick her up, and I can get up early in the morning one day and like, hey, let's go to the park and just go to the park with her and go play, or go to Chick-fil-A and to their little playground if it's a rainy day and watch her play, and or even I'll crawl my broke self up in there with her and play with her.
There you go.
And I get to do that, and I'm so glad I can do that. I may not live like I'm rich, but my bills are paid. You know,
Oh no, I disagree. I think that
yeah.
you are living as if you were rich. I think that the life that you live right now is very rich, and I
I,
think a lot of people wish they had that.
I agree. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from that. That's the reason I chose this life. It's rich in other ways. A lot of times when we're gone, that's when all the bad things happen.
Yeah.
Faucet breaks, toilet explodes, and the car breaks down, and now they're having to deal with that, or you try to find somebody to help your family out. I can I can be there for them, and that the only time I have not been here with my wife and my kids is when my dad was passing away, and so I went to Alabama to help take care of my dad and the family and stuff there, and try to do all the preparation and stuff because my brother runs a shop. One sister, she's the mail lady in the town, and my other sister, she's doing her thing, and she couldn't be there to take care of my dad. And my mom, her health was bad too, so they actually both passed right back to back. So other than that, I've been here for everything. And remember I was saying, whenever things were really tough, I started talking to a counselor.
Hmm.
That was, one of those times, those peaks, that or valleys, I should say, where things are low, and you got to be careful and watch yourself because, that's when depression can set in. You start getting sad, or, you start making the mistake of drinking too much or using drugs to cope with these feelings. I've seen too many of my friends that got on those little wagons and, it never turned out well for them.
Right. Right.
I've lost a lot of, my friends that, uh, especially here recently, due to everything from cancer to, just suddenly passed away. And it's, it's hard, seeing people that pass away, back to back to back. So
Yeah. Absolutely. Um, but that leads us right into the last couple of questions as we wrap up here. I'm going to ask you the same two questions that I ask everybody. The first question is, out of all the years that you've experienced in the Army, and hindsight being 2020 about your retirement and about getting out. Now, granted, you had a very interesting retirement procedure. However, what's one piece of advice that you would give someone who is transitioning out of the military, or getting ready to transition out of the military, or is spending that first few months still kind of unsure of what life is like outside of the military?
first of all, I would say throughout your career, you need to um, have your little I Love Me book, and then keep all of the times that, like your profile slips and all the times that you went to the doctor, got, profiles or convalescent leave and stuff like that. Keep that on file. And then whenever you get ready to get out, you can go back and look at those and go, oh, yeah, I have been having problems with my shoulder, and that's why I tore it out of place in '05. You kind of forget about it because you got so much going through your mind as you're trying to process getting out. What's going on with the unknown is trying to remember all the things that you need to claim. And you got to basically have records of it and prove it, because a lot of things don't end up in your medical records. Luckily, I kind of did that over the years, and I did tear my rotator socket out of place in Iraq. And so I actually had the paperwork from that, but it was not in my medical records. I even had a copy of the x ray that nobody could find. And then so I showed that, and they did another x ray, and they could see the scar tissue and everything. And because, the pain that I was having. And so I you could claim that. But having all that stuff, making sure that you have tried to get as much education and taking care of your body throughout your career, so that when you get out, you are set up to start your a career.
Okay.
A friend of mine, when he got out, he wanted to be a dental hygienist. So before he got out, he started taking classes to be a dental hygienist. And so right after he got out, he was finishing up his last semester, and he got his job as a dental hygienist. I think he's actually working on becoming an actual dentist now.
Oh, wow.
So getting education, keeping up with your records so that you can claim everything with the VA if you can before you get out. kind of do the med board and VA process at the same time. If you're that, bad off,
Yeah.
some of us have too much pride and they're like, it'll be all right, some Motrin and some water and I'll be good. And then whenever they get out, they only get, 10%. And they got to live with that, till they get so far where they can't hardly walk or move. And now they're trying to struggle to get that jumped up to 50% or, more. I do see so many people that are struggling to get the benefits that whenever you have a 50% or higher, especially like you got 100%, there's a lot of more benefits and stuff that you can apply for, including education for your kids. There's certain scholarships and stuff that, they'd be entitled to. Do the research to be able to see what education you can get
Yeah.
for yourself, and prepare yourself for your kids too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah. Yeah, you
I
did.
start getting on these things and I start thinking about it.
Yeah. Not a,
TBI, man. I'm sorry, TBI.
it's all right.
My brain's been rattled.
It's okay. But that'll lead right into my last question. Um, what's one thing that you did in the Army that you just cannot get rid of?
There's quite a few of those. When I'm walking around the house, I'll start humming cadences and stuff. And one that drives my wife crazy is, I'm trying to break is, the word behoove. It would behoove
No.
you to, go clean your room, or it would behoove you to go in there and study.
Oh man, you kept the behoove, huh?
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, there's a few others. I'll start, a bird will fly and land on the window, and I'll start singing that one. Or
We all know that doesn't end well for the bird.
oh yeah, and I live right here by Fort Bragg, and so I have helicopters flying over all the time, and I'm walking around outside, and I hear the choppers hovering.
Gotcha. So yeah, you just got to tune in your head the whole time, huh?
Oh yeah, yeah. That's
Good to
that's my
know.
peaceful place, I guess you could say.
Yeah, for sure. Luke, thank you so much for chatting with me tonight. I appreciate you doing it, especially in your car. I know that you've got busy, and I wanted to be respectful of your time.
Oh, good man. Anytime.
I appreciate you. So, everyone, take a moment, like, share, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell, and later, lads.